Hello, winners, and welcome for Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. We share international insight and perspectives on things such as Monday Mindset, where we talk about mindset and leadership, Wanderlust Wednesday, when we talk about travel and the travel business, and Fanatic Friday, where we talk about sports. Each episode you can expect to be about 20 to 30 minutes in length. And today's episode is sponsored by Dream Vacations, thanks to Nick Menard and Associates. So thank you, Nick Menard and Associates, for your sponsorship.
You're very welcome. You're welcome, Will. Hi, winners. Hope you have an amazing day today.
Yeah, so please make sure to follow, subscribe, share, spread the word, and share your feedback, and we'll continue to craft these episodes based on the feedback of what you're like us to talk about. But today is Monday Mindset. You ready? How's your mindset today, Nick?
My mindset is always great.
Always
because
great?
when I wake up in the morning and I just smile, happy for a new day, and try to find the positive in everything I do. So it's not always as simple, but that's the goal every single day.
Yeah, because how do most people think about Monday? They're like,
Monday, it's a new
here we
week.
go. Yeah,
5 more days.
I know, trying to get to the weekend, So kudos to you for starting off hot on the right foot.
Absolutely. Just a day like another.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, today, winners, we have a topic which is something that personally I can say I've really begun to cultivate pretty well over the years. Early on, maybe not as good, but over the years have cultivated it. And that is what we like to affectionately call focusing on the critical few and economic prioritization. And so what we mean very high level, and then I'll throw it over to my co-host, Nick, to chat and get his thoughts. But when we think about focusing on the critical few, there's always going to be a lot of good things to do. And there's always also going to be a lot of distractions. And so the ability to stay focused and narrow your focus on just a few things, typically, in general, and we'll talk more about this, leads to better execution. And then the economic prioritization piece is, okay, whatever you are focused on, is it worth it? Is the expected return on the investment or ROI worth the effort, or is there something else that might be worth a little bit more? We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But when you hear things like focus on the critical few or economic prioritization, what runs through your mind?
Well, when you own businesses or when you work for global organizations, we will be overwhelmed with a lot of things coming on your plate on a daily basis, as you know. Mm-hmm. So where to put your focus, but as a leader, where to coach your teams on where to put the focus and what message to give during those times. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I hear about critical prioritization, it's really understanding based on what needs to be achieved, what should be the first step to get there, because we cannot achieve everything or work on everything the same day. And so that's really reflecting, take a step back again and see, okay, what should be the number one thing to do right now to fix issue number one or to focus number one before going to number two and then number three. And at the end goal is to be able to do everything we can in order to improve as much as we can as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So before we dive deeper into this topic, we're going to do a segment early, which we call Quotes and Quips. Woo-hoo! Yeah, here we go. Some little thoughtful things to noodle on. So we'll start with a quote first. This one comes from, I found this, I guess it's a site, I guess you can say on Facebook, called Wisdom Words. I started following it, and this comes from that source. So okay. I don't know. They don't have it cited by anyone else. I'm assuming they came up with it. Whoever Wisdom Words are, thank you. But anyway, here's your plug. But the quote is, "The secret is there is no secret. Consistency over intensity, progress over perfection, fundamentals over fads. Over and over again." And the reason why I thought of when you know me, I like my quotes and I kind of have some in storage and pull them out. And I was thinking of this quote when we were thinking about today's topic, because the fundamentals over fads. So when you think about economic prioritization, are you mastering the fundamentals, or are you just going after the bright, shiny object? Which, if that's a fundamental, great. But if not, maybe make sure the fundamentals, but the consistency over the intensity. And we spoke about a few weeks ago about the importance of not being afraid to make mistakes and to learn and grow and iterate. So progress over perfection. So anyway, I kind of like that one. But any quick thoughts on that quote before I go to the quip?
People who work with me for a while, they know it's something I say it all the time. Like, we don't need one perfection. We need progress. If every day we have a little progress, it's a success by itself. And over time, we will be close to perfection. I don't believe we ever get it, but we get close to perfection. So that quote resonates for me as well a lot. Like, the secret is not a secret. I mean, it's true. If you want something to work with your team, organization, small business, share. Share it. The more people understand what we try to accomplish, the more chance we have to actually reach it. And it's something I know in some small businesses, for example, the leader or the owner tend to want to keep some stuff. They don't want to divulge everything they want to do, but that's actually a sacrifice to their own business. Because if they share their views, if they share what they try to accomplish, at every level, people will actually understand probably better why, and they will be able to get there faster. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, agree. Delegate or stagnate. That's it. That's the
I
name
like
of the
that.
game. All right. So the quip. So the difference between a quote and a quip. A quip's a little bit tongue in cheekish, right? So the quip is an unsourced quip. It's just, I guess, a general quip that I came across, and it wasn't attributed to anybody. But what the quip is focusing is a bit like trying to herd cats, except the cats are your own thoughts and running in every direction. And the trick is to grab just one, and then you can be amazed at what you get done by just building onto that, holding onto that one cat at a time. And so when I thought of this quip, the other thing that came into my head, and I've said this to you, I know before, and some others, there's some people who they're just scattered. If you ever seen the movie Up, that cartoon movie with the old guy in the house, that is a tender movie. That is a great movie, even though it's an animated movie. But there's a dog in that movie, and whenever he sees a squirrel, no matter what he's in the middle of, he says squirrel. He starts boom chasing the squirrel. I've worked with people like that, and I've reported to people like that, and who are leaders, and whatever is the thing of the moment, they go after, and it's not like they can stay focused. And what it does is it cause a lot of angst and getting people, I think, stressed out, and ultimately it impacts execution. The execution isn't as good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love the quips as well, because like, again, it's what we talk about. We can be busy trying to catch all the cats at once, and then the chance is that you don't get any. Or you just focus at one at a time. Something else, when I think about that quip, I think about you think about Hup. I think about Ice Age, where the little one like trying to
The
get
squirrel.
those nuts. And the old movie is chasing that one nut. Well, he's focused, and at the end he got it. Well, at the end of four season, but 4 episode. But I really like that. Again, like, know what you want to do, reach that first, learn from it, and go to the next one after.
Yeah, agree. So let's dive a little deeper, shall we? So that was quotes and quips. Hope you enjoyed that, our winners. But when you think about focus on the critical few, I mean, what comes to mind for you? Like, how maybe you have a story you could think about in your career where you started working with a team, leading a team, and they needed that sense of direction. And how did you narrow that focus and get them to just focus on the critical few?
Absolutely. So yes, I remember one time when I took over a team that was struggling for a few years. So that's a position I like to have. Like, that's, as a leader, when you work for a global corporation, you like to be to be taking over a team who is struggling because there's only one way up, right? But what's important to do, it's understanding again, okay, what's the problem? Okay, what is wrong? And so when I took over that specific team, I realized that the problem was not the people. The people were actually good people, meaning they knew what they needed to achieve. They were doing a great job with their clients, great job with their partners. But why, by doing everything right, why the outcome was not what we were hoping for? So after a month to observation, I realized that the problem is that they were doing a lot of things good, but nothing was great. And so I was like, okay, let's focus on what's the most important for that business was talking to as many clients, I know client as much as possible. And let's focus on just that. Let's forget or not think too much about all the other things that needs to be done. Focus number one is that have those conversations with your clients on a very strict basis. After a couple of months, those numbers, talking to the clients, improved drastically.
Wow.
So now I know that the habits of talking to him, to the client, are improving. So what's next? Well, now we talk enough with the clients. Let's make sure that you provide value, the value needed. So they did already, but let's focus on coaching on that, Then at that time, the coaching, like allowed them to understand better where to focus on those calls, which improve the quality of those engagement with the clients. So that was step number 2. Then we have step number 3 and 4. But little by little, gradually, we tackle everything, but one by one. I think the problem before in that specific situation was that probably the previous leader was willing to tackle everything at once. So the message was confusing, and you feel like you're not achieving nothing because you're always left and right. So by doing so, you didn't have that consequences. So that's a story that happened to me where I really focus on one task at a time, without losing sight of the end goal, of course. But by doing so, we achieve the end goal a lot faster than by trying to achieve everything in one time, if it makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And when you first introduced it to the team, what was their response like? Like how were the,
Surprised.
Yeah.
That was surprised because they're like, oh, really? Like one focus? So that's just to say that it was something positive and something that worked, that they didn't have, that kind of experience before, where they were overwhelmed with multitask. And those tasks were probably very accurate. The problem, you cannot do everything at all time. So let's focus on one thing before jumping to the next one. And then at the end, we have a beautiful visibility of what's happening, and we can then tweak the little details.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I was thinking of something similar but slightly different when I first got a position where I had to lead a multi-geographic organization. So when, up until this point, most of the teams I led were based in the United States. And so this particular role was the first time where I had teammates in the United States, Europe, and Asia. And one of the things we were faced with was there was a lot of rapid transformation and innovation going on, and people were getting a sense of overwhelm. And because of the time constraints we had to try to innovate within, because there were certain milestones we had to hit, the approach I took was similar but slightly different. What I mean by that is, what I did is I split the team into basically 2 geographies. I had the US and then rest of world. And the US, they were focused on one thing, but it was one particular area. Rest of world was focused on the second thing that we felt was really important. And then we did that for a series of time. We had a 1-month pause after that series of time where we shared what were the bright spots and areas to improve. And then we flip-flop. Then the US took the rest of the world one, and the rest of the world took the US one, and then did that for a similar time. And then at the end, that was it. Compiled the results, seen what was scalable, what could we iterate on. And so I think, similar to you, keep them focused ideally on one thing. That's going to drive rapid execution and accelerate the execution improvement quickly. But if you have well, I guess it doesn't really matter what the team size is, but if you have an ability where you really need to do two things, try to do them in parallel, not where the group is doing two at the same time, but segment the group and have one group work on one group work at the other, and then share cliff notes, flip, and then see what you learn and grow from there.
I love that. How long did it take for you when you took over? That's important because I'm sure some of our winners listening right now, they may be in similar situation. I'm sure you had some challenges when you took over internationally. What would you say was, a challenge with the change of culture as well to make your teams focus on something very specific while it's probably not something they were used to? So what was the
Yeah, I found the surprising thing is there are absolutely cultural nuances. So I'm not going to sit here and say there weren't. But when you know how I tend to like to lead, where you paint a picture of the vision, you share the why, you have a destination postcard or a roadmap, and then you kind of set out, okay, here's the phases in which we're going to do. So I feel that resonates regardless of culture. I think the differences in the culture that I experienced with it were some folks in certain regions got way too granular, deep in the weeds on certain things. Like it goes back to what you were saying earlier about perfection over progress. They were so worried about making sure they did it right from the onset. And it took a little bit for them to trust that, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. I'm not worried about the mistakes as long as we're learning from the mistakes. Exactly. And so I think for the cultural difference was a little bit more of being more of a patient listener, because obviously, driven and kind of go-getter. And that's been an area that I've liked to think I've cultivated better over the years, is being more of an empathetic listener and active listener. But it was listening. And then for them, it was creating that psychological safety. So they knew it's okay to make mistakes. It's to your point, it's about progress. And there was somebody who I used to work with. She was actually interviewing for a role, and she had this in her presentation, and she's like, I believe in the power of 365. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, if you're just 1% better every day, at the end of the year, you will have grown exponentially by like 365%, which is mathematically true. It's tough to implement, but the concept is fantastic, right? It's just that little bit, a lot of little improvements lead to big improvements over time. So I think that was the biggest thing. Was just, it was more social styles, I think, than anything, that, and making sure they had psychological safety, knowing that if a mistake was made, they didn't have to be looking over their shoulder. As long as they could articulate what did they learn and what were they going to do different going forward.
I love that as well. And I'm sorry, I have another question for you,
Yeah,
because as a senior leader of a big global organization currently that you are leading, how do those changes of focusing in one thing during a certain period of time, when you get to something new or a new region or something like that, how you articulate that to your leaders? So as a senior leader, when you talk to your leaders, how are they taking the fact that you're going to change the methodology a little bit during a certain period of time? The communication piece is something that I'm interested to learn, and probably some of our winners as well when they're corporate America, for example. Because I understand that they have expectations, and I was wondering if you ran into some kind of roadblocks at some point, or the way that to communicate that with your own leaders.
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think, obviously we're both leaders in a client success organization. I think there are some folks who are in client success and they really should be in program management or L&D, because they like doing like creative PowerPoints. They like doing artistic and fun gamification efforts. They like doing things other than maybe focused on just the fundamental, like what we do with client success is coaching, developing people, and making sure we're delighting our clients. So for me, it's setting up that expectation up front. Like, I am not looking to necessarily promote the people who do all the things above and beyond the normal expectations of the role. Those are certainly nice to do and certainly can help move the business forward. But if they're doing great at those things, but the basic criteria for success in the role is being missed, that's what matters most. So, it's kind of like what Stephen Covey says, put first things first. He's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. You keep the first things first. Like, so your role, the expectations of your role, that's the first priority. Then if you're doing that and you want to do these extra things, go for it. So for them, it was always, I came up with the concept called big bets, probably because I like to gamble, but
That's right.
yeah. But it's like, if you were going to place 1 or 2 big bets and you went through the course of the year and you look back on the year and you executed well on those 2 big bets, would you be happy? Would you feel like you accomplished what you did? And if the answer is yes, then don't worry about if you did 3, 4, 5 big bets. Like, again, going back to the prioritization and focus. So it was really trying to articulate that. Then, we talked about Switch a few weeks ago, the book Switch, and shaping the path. So I've done different things depending on the organization at different times. I've done like little PMOs where if they want to do a project, they have to submit it and it goes through vetting so that they don't, because that's one of the things as a senior leader, I can't be everywhere. And even though I'm like, hey, just focus on one thing, at most 2, keep things very balanced and spaced out so people don't get burned out and they have good work-life balance and they can execute well. But invariably, people like to do stuff that maybe goes beyond that. And maybe it's because they're a little bored, or maybe it's because they just like doing it, but what they don't understand is sometimes those great intentions actually causes more issues with the team because they're like, oh, what's the Baskin Robbins flavor of the week this week? Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be that way for the most part, And so it's so I've done that with shaping the path. I've done things like when they have to give me a monthly business review update, they're listing what they're doing. Sometimes I have people in my operations organization do like a micro time in motion and kind of observe and find out what's going on because, and it's not to be like Sauron, the overseeing eye from Lord of the Rings, but it is about sometimes protecting people from themselves. They have good intentions, but what they're doing is they're actually reducing the execution effectiveness because they're trying to do too much at once.
Love it. I'm very inspired when I listen to you about this subject in particular, because I know that how great you are definitely in those kind of topic of leadership and focusing on the critical few. So that's definitely something that I love to keep listening on. But I think you touched on a point earlier in the beginning of this, when you said that sometimes people are not in the right role. Mm-hmm. There are so many talented people, like in all companies. But I realize a lot of times that some of them are great, but not in the right position. Mm-hmm. And so that's the beauty of understanding based on where you are in the organization. Are you first happy where you are? And if you are happy, but you struggle with the work, is it because you need some more trainings, or is it because you would prefer to do something different that would really help the company or the business, but you are in the wrong role currently? So that's something I already touched base on that, I think a few weeks ago in the past episode. But it's important that as a leader, sometimes you realize that, even though the person is probably very competent, maybe not for that role, and finding the right role for that person will help the company, the business even more. but daring to actually have those difficult conversations in order to understand really what is the priority for that person and what that person actually enjoy doing the most based on their skills.
Yeah, when you said that, a picture came into my mind of a face of somebody who we used to work with directly, and she was somebody who she was a very good leader. So she was very good, but we had an initiative that she led, and it ended up really making a significant impact in the business. But she had to run it like a project manager, a program manager. And I remember we were chatting, and I'm like, you could just tell her demeanor, like she was happier, she was enthusiastic, the quality of work. Like, again, she was a very good leader, but her quality of work on the program management, the structure, the communication, the visuals were next level. And we had a chat, and she found an opportunity in learning and development where she could do training programs. And she earned that opportunity, and she's great. I mean, so leadership, yeah, I would hire her again as a leader, but she is phenomenal at the learning and development. And it's just having that conversation. We talked about it before. If you take the time to get to know your people, and we'll have to have this as a future chat about individual development plans and skill-based IDPs. But I mean, if they're focused on the skills, so when you can marry, I'm not a big believer in follow your passion and you'll be great, because I'm passionate about music. I can't play an instrument to save my life. So if I try to follow it, I would be bankrupt.
And please
because
don't sing.
Yeah, definitely don't sing. Yeah. So don't give me any margaritas or anything on that one. But I mean, like, seriously, like, you can follow your passion if you do have skills with your passion, And I think when you go over and you look at the inventory of skills, and they have things that they're passionate about that align with those skills, that's where the magic happens. Because you can be great at something even if you're not uber passionate about it. But if you have the skills and you have the passion, that's where you can really be exceptional. And I think it's just having that conversation with folks, and it's not a personal thing. It's really about what's based on my perception and what they've shared with me. This would be the thing that maybe would be the better fit, and let's figure out a way to make that happen.
Another reason why you're such an inspirational leader is that you recognize someone's greatness in what they're doing currently, but you realize that she's even better or she's even more enthusiastic about something else that she's excelling. And so by having that conversation, you had someone doing something great, but maybe not 100% happy, now doing something so great, but be happy at the same time. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Oh yeah.
So that's also something for winners to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do the right thing by the people, and I do believe in leadership. If you do the right thing by the people, the right thing are coming back for the business as well.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
So that was an entertaining and a very, very exciting topic again. One more time for our Monday Mindset.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun. I know we didn't get to economic prioritization. We'll build it into a future episode. I mean, there's things that obviously overlap, so we'll get to that. So thank you, winners. Be sure to subscribe, save, share, and follow the Two for the Win podcast. Spread the word. Give us feedback, things that we can do. Wanted to give a shout out again to Nick Menard and Associates with Dream Vacations for sponsoring today's episode. If you like the quote and the quip, or if you have your own quote or quip you'd like us to use, email us. Send us an email or put it in the comments in one of the platforms. We're all over the place. You pick the platform, we're probably there. So, please share it, and we'll bring it into an episode, and we'll give you a call out on it as well on that, so you get your 15 seconds of fame as well. So thank you, winners. Hope you enjoyed today's Monday Mindset. We will see you Wednesday for Wanderlust Wednesday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, winner. Bye-bye.